I've decided to have Mom move in and live with us. My husband's sudden declaration about living together almost made me drop my cup. What? You can't just spring that on me out of nowhere. We can't do that here. Mom's been really down since she became alone suddenly, so I thought it'd be good for her to stay with us for a while. She'll be moving in next week. I was, of course, concerned about my mother-in-law, Sophia, who had suddenly lost her husband in a car accident. But why would he decide on something as big as living together without discussing it with me? I was upset by the suddenness of it all, but tried to convince myself that it was okay, for just a short time. However, to my astonishment, Sophia arrived the next week with movers in tow. Sophia, what's all this stuff? What's going on? I figured I'd be more comfortable here than at home, so I thought I might as well sell my house and move here. What? Looking at my husband, I saw him grinning at me. I told you I was bringing Mom to live here, right? This is my house. You need to follow my orders and take care of Mom properly. What? Your orders? What are you talking about? This is the house I'm renting from Scarlett, remember? Had my husband forgotten something that important? I know that, but right now I'm the one paying the high rent here. If you can't listen to what I say, then you can leave the house. What? He's only paying half of the $3,000 rent, though. I could have argued there, but instead I decided to let them face reality. Holding back my retort, I began to pack my bags. This is not going to work. Leaving the high-rise apartment, I sighed heavily and made a phone call. I am Aurora, 35 years old. I've been running my own facial aesthetic salon for 7 years now. I went to vocational school to become a beautician, but during my studies, my focus shifted. Believing that true beauty lies in natural skin, I opened my shop after years of training in a salon. My husband William and I have been married for 3 years. We were high school classmates and reconnected at our 10-year reunion. One day, while discussing natural stone bracelets that were popular back then with my friends, my husband chimed in. If you want to boost your love luck, maybe Inca Rose would be better. Why? And how do you know about this? Oh, I had a phase where I researched natural stones. I mean, we're in our late 20s. Seemed like a good idea for meeting someone special. I was intrigued by him, bedhead hair and all. He had always been known as the guy with the funny bedhead in school. Despite his indifference to appearance and rumors, I never realized he was such an intellectual. Later at the after-party, I found out he was also into my favorite anime and shared lots of rare insights. From then on, I was the one who initiated contact, and eventually, we started dating. Today marks our 2nd year together, but I want to be with you next year too. So let's get married. Is this a proposal? Yeah, what else would it be? Well, it's just so sudden. He was a strange guy, but to me, he was interesting and comfortable to be around. I had no reason to say no. 2 years into our marriage, an opportunity, or rather, a great chance came my way. It was an incredible offer from my beloved cousin Scarlett, who is 10 years older than me. We've been close like sisters since we didn't have siblings of our own. Scarlett's proposal was wonderful, but maybe it was too much of a shock for my husband, or me. Little did I know that this would lead to such an outcome. Next month, my husband has to go overseas for work for 2 years. Aurora, how about you live in my high-rise condo during that time? What? No way! I could never afford the rent for a place like that. Mark, Scarlett's husband, has been a successful entrepreneur since his youth, and to be honest, he's wealthier than I could ever imagine. Scarlett also became independent as a management consultant a few years ago, and her profits have been steadily increasing. Aurora, didn't you say before that you couldn't exceed a monthly income of $5,000? Why not try living like a celebrity for once? If you get used to that environment, it might solve your current problems in one fell swoop. I see. Changing my perception of money, right? That's the idea. Our current rent is $15,000, but if you live with us, it's just $3,000. What do you think? I felt dizzy. Even the $900 I currently pay for rent feels expensive. In fact, I really like our current high-rise apartment and don't want to give it up. But Mark said he's okay lending it to you, Aurora. Think of it as an investment. The high-rise apartment where Scarlett lives is owned by Mark's friend Thomas. Thomas, who supports entrepreneurs, immediately agreed when Scarlett mentioned me. I understand it's a good offer, but can I consult with William and get back to you? Of course. I'll be waiting expectantly. At this time, I had been running my salon for 5 years, but no matter how hard I had tried, there were limits to what I could do alone. I had almost given up on ever making more than $5,000 a month. That's why, even before responding, the amount was already pressuring me. When I returned home with heavy steps, my husband was in the middle of his newfound passion for muscle training. I cautiously brought up Scarlett's offer. Why not? The room would be bigger, and it's very close to your workplace. My husband works as an in-house designer for a company, preferring to spend time only on his interests. Commuting from Scarlett's high-rise would significantly reduce his travel time. But it'll be a bigger financial burden than before, right? It's for your growth, right? I'm fine with either decision, so just decide with Scarlett. Even after marriage, my husband showed little interest in anything beyond his hobbies. Probably he was only concerned about the shorter commute in this situation. Even when I explained the terms of living there and the rent, he just nodded, leaving me unsure if he was really listening. After much deliberation, I decided to pay half of the rent, $1.5K, with my husband covering the other half, and I would take care of all other living expenses. I decided to take a gamble on my life for the next 2 years. Wow. Amazing. These were our first words when we set foot in the luxurious rental property. I thought I could live in the shoe closet next to the entrance, and the living room, over 40 tatami mats in size, seemed perfect for a grand party. In the spacious room, the striking feature was a pure white leather sofa. Feel free to use everything, we were told. The furniture and appliances, types I had never dreamed of owning, made it hard for me to feel at home. For us, who had never even stayed at a hotel suite, this was a dreamlike, humbling experience. Now I understand what Scarlett meant. Getting used to this environment might indeed change my perspective. Yes, it certainly might. And so our life in a luxury apartment began. Familiarity is a frightening thing. Within 3 months, the initially tense-feeling house started to feel comforting. My approach to work also changed significantly. Having moved here, I wondered if I could use this location to do something new. I'm thinking of hiring someone for my salon, maybe even start offering workshops during my free time. That's what you've been requested before, right? If you want to try it, go for it. I run a beauty-related social media account individually, and had been receiving requests for direct workshops. From then on, every day was a mix of learning and practical application. It was exhausting, but the results were well received, and before I knew it, I was easily surpassing my $5,000 monthly income goal. I had changed, but this environment had also had a significant impact on my husband. His appearance, for one, had transformed. Apparently, he didn't want to inconvenience our neighbors with his usual careless look. He now took care to fix his bed hair and dress neatly before going out. But as a result, our house became messier. People at work who never spoke to me before are starting to talk to me. I bet. You look the best you ever have right now. In the year since we moved, our lives were truly going smoothly. Dark clouds overshadowed our happiness when Sophia, who learned of our new address, came to visit. Sophia enjoys taking lessons as a hobby and is a luxury-loving, show-off personality. I was surprised by the address, but what a wonderful house! I never imagined William would move into such a place. Mom must be so proud. Just like us, Sophia was also surprised. No, Sophia, this house is... That's right, isn't it? When I decide to do something, I do it right. My husband cut off my words, smirking as if he was the one who had rented the place, and then gestured for silence with his finger to his lips. The class I attend is close to here. It'll be easy to drop by, so I'll be visiting more often. Okay. Just make sure to contact us before coming. Of course, I understand. I had a bad feeling about this. After retirement, father-in-law enjoyed fishing with friends and often traveled far. As a result, Sophia's overnight visits increased when father-in-law was away. What bothered me was Sophia sleeping on the white sofa in the living room. No matter how many times I asked her not to, even if I laid out a futon on the floor, she would end up sleeping on the sofa. Sophia, please stop sleeping on the white sofa. This is a rented place. Oh, I'm sorry. I just find myself sleeping here without realizing it. Initially, Sophia behaved like a guest, but gradually, she started acting as if it was her own house. She was careless with the furniture and appliances, making me worry that she would damage something. Hey, isn't Sophia coming over too often? This isn't our house. She should show some restraint. Come on, let Mom enjoy it too. It's not often you get to live like this. Besides, she's helping with cleaning every time she comes, right? It seemed my husband had not corrected his lie to Sophia. He had become neat in his appearance, but was utterly careless at home. Sophia's presence, whom he could easily ask to clean up, must have been convenient for him. But her promised cleaning had only happened at first. Aurora, the house is a mess. Get up and vacuum. The bathroom is all wet. The frequency of Sophia being at our house increased, and she began to nag me. Influenced by Sophia, my husband started blaming me too, adding to my stress after returning home. Yet, I was somewhat reassured, knowing father-in-law was still at home, even though he was away often. As Sophia's visits became more frequent, another source of stress emerged. My husband started coming home late. Some nights he returned drunk or didn't come home until morning. Sometimes, I could smell perfume on him. When confronted, he said he was hooked on finding new bars to drink at. Stop it! It's okay to go out drinking, but coming home in the morning is not right. And how much are you spending on drinks? I give you enough money, don't I? How I spend my money is my business. Just shut up. I was shocked, as he had never spoken to me like this before. But there was something else I had to confront him about. You're wearing Mark's suits from the closet without permission, aren't you? Do you think that's okay? What? You're using Scarlett's clothes and bags without asking, aren't you? I was dumbfounded. Did he think everything in this house was free for us to use? I have Scarlett's permission, and I always get them cleaned and returned. Have you asked Mark's permission? No, but you can handle that, right? Mark's suits are so cool. They fit me perfectly since we're about the same height. I get a lot of compliments. I felt like exploding with anger. It was obvious that a landlord who could afford such a house would have stylish suits. If he damaged them, my husband wouldn't be able to afford the replacements. Stop it right now! Take care of what you've used and never wear them again. You're so annoying. You really piss me off. I'm at my most popular right now. If you keep nagging, I'll divorce you. Divorce! I felt my love cooling. The man in front of me was no longer the husband I knew. But amidst this, an unexpected event occurred. While away on a fishing trip, father-in-law was involved in an accident and passed away. Caught up in the funeral preparations and arrangements, all my other worries were momentarily forgotten. Just as things were settling down after the 49-day mourning period, my husband made a shocking announcement. I've decided to invite Mom to live with us here. His sudden declaration of living together nearly made me drop the cup I was holding. What? You can't just spring that on me. It's impossible here. Mom's been sad since she suddenly found herself alone, so I thought we'd live together here for a while. Even so, why did he decide this without consulting me? She's moving in next week. Next week? Why didn't you talk to me about this sooner? Sorry, but I thought you would understand. Oh, come on. I was upset by the suddenness, but maybe it was okay for a short while. I was worried about Sophia, who had suddenly lost father-in-law. However, I felt distrust towards my husband for deciding to live with Sophia without any discussion. The following week, to my astonishment, Sophia arrived with movers. Sophia, what's all this luggage about? This place is so much more comfortable than mine, so I thought, why not sell my house and move here? What? Looking at my husband, he was smirking at me. I told you I'd invited Mom to live with us, right? But I said it was impossible here, and it was supposed to be just for a short while. It's so spacious here. One more person won't matter. My husband had intended to live here with Sophia all along. I didn't know what he had told Sophia, but selling her own house, it was giving me a headache. My husband then said something even more absurd. This is my house. You'll obey your husband's orders. Take good care of Mom. What? Husband? What are you talking about? This is the house that I rented from Scarlett. Had my husband forgotten such an important fact? I know, but I'm the one paying the high rent here now. What? My husband had always been careless about money and possessions. But I never imagined he'd remember so little about this house. Before marriage, he lived in a $250 old apartment. Compared to that, a $1.5K rent must feel very high. But did he seriously think he was renting this place for that price? If you can't obey your husband, then get out of this house. You've become annoyingly complaining lately. That's right. We're living so well thanks to William, and you dare complain? That's a failure as a wife. I felt I understood my husband's plot. Ever since moving here, he enjoyed being fawned over and found me annoying for questioning his spending and late returns. Unaware of his grand misunderstanding, he was trying to kick me out. Fine, I'll leave. But are you sure about this? Yeah, we're getting divorced. I'll live here with Mom. Don't worry, we have Dad's inheritance and the money from selling the house. I'll send the divorce papers to your salon later. So that's why he had invited Sophia. I could have argued, but I decided to let them face reality. I packed my suitcase and left the house silently. This is hopeless. Exiting the high-rise, I sighed deeply and called Scarlett overseas. What? I won't forgive him for doing that to my sister. Just wait a month. I'll come back as soon as I'm ready. Scarlett was furious at my husband's actions and decided to return home 6 months early. About a month later, I received a call from my husband. He had sent me divorce papers right after I left, but I knew this call was about something else. I ignored it for a while, but I finally answered due to the persistent ringing. Aurora? Finally! The management company said they couldn't deduct the rent. I've been transferring it as usual. Please check with Scarlett what's going on. Did you check your bank balance? I did. There's 1.5K in it. I barely contained my laughter. I hadn't transferred anything to the account for rent deductions, and I had withdrawn the balance after leaving the high-rise. With only 1.5K, they wouldn't even deduct the heating bill, let alone the rent. Must be embarrassing to have no electricity in the luxury apartment. Why didn't you put the money in? What? Why should I pay the heating bill for a house I don't even live in? Realizing that he had said something absurd, my husband fell silent. You have the day off tomorrow, right? I'll come over so we can talk. Ah, okay. I understand. Please do. His disappointment was palpable, even over the phone. He really got carried away. I'll make sure he cleans up this mess. The next day, I went to the high-rise apartment with Scarlett, who had just returned from abroad. I could have used my key, but I decided to ring the doorbell. Sophia answered the door. Hello, who might you be? Aurora? Why have you come back? Didn't you get divorced? Yes, we got divorced, so I've come to vacate the apartment. What? Sophia, surprised, was followed by my husband, looking uncomfortable. He hadn't yet informed Sophia about the current situation, but the moment he saw Scarlett standing behind me, his eyes widened. Scarlett? Why are you here? I rushed back from abroad after Aurora called me. Oh, and this is Thomas, the owner and manager of this apartment. We had informed Thomas about our discussion, and he agreed to join us. Entering the living room, I was shocked by what I saw. The once lovely space looked like a warehouse now. Sophia's moving boxes were still piled up in the corner of the room. Scarlett sighed quietly beside me. We all sat on the sofa, and Thomas was the first to speak. So, when can we expect this month's rent payment? No, I've transferred the usual 1.5K to the account, but it seems it wasn't deducted. My husband, sweating and speaking nervously, looked pitiful. His hair was messy, as in the old days. You seriously thought it was 1.5K? Didn't I ask you to pay only half of the rent at first? Remember? What? Really? Half means it was actually 3K? I think I kind of remember something about half. My husband looked shocked and then scratched his head in frustration. It's a little fascinating how he completely forgets things he's not interested in. Yes, 3K. But the actual rent here is 15K. What? 15K? Maybe I only heard about the amount we were supposed to pay. Not we, but rather the amount he was supposed to pay. Sophia, standing beside my husband, also had her eyes wide open in shock. What? What do you mean? Isn't this a high-rise apartment William is renting from an acquaintance? No, it's a high-rise I'm renting from Scarlett. I had it for 2 years, but due to recent events, I've decided to terminate the lease 6 months early. Sophia turned pale, hitting my husband's knee in panic. What are we going to do? I thought William was earning well, so I sold my house, and I've done so much shopping. What now? Sophia covered her mouth with her hands, trembling, but then she turned to Scarlett. Scarlett, then why don't you rent it to William and me for 1.5K? Just for half a year. I can't give up this lifestyle so soon. Scarlett's mouth turned down at Sophia's audacious request. Look, Aurora, please ask her too. You know, you could even move back in here if you want. I could feel my own mouth turning down, mirroring Scarlett's. I rented this place to support Aurora's efforts. I will not forgive anyone who tries to drive her out. Scarlett's gaze made my husband close his eyes and look down. But leaving here would not be the end of it. Still, you've treated everything so carelessly. This sofa, for example? I can't even think of using it anymore. Scarlett frowned as she looked at the stains and dirt on the pure white leather sofa. Originally, I planned to have you buy any severely worn items after 2 years, so we'll have to check everything now. What? Wait a minute. I didn't hear anything about this. My husband, who had been looking down, raised his head, sounding surprised. In a normal rental, you restore things to their original state. It's only fair to compensate if you've mishandled furniture and appliances. I had explained this too, but with him not even remembering the rent, these details wouldn't even be at the back of his mind. Scarlett walked around the room, checking everything. I heard many sighs from the kitchen, so it's likely that the appliances will have to be bought. Then, opening the bedroom closet, Scarlett sighed even more deeply. William, did you wear Mark's suits without permission? I didn't say you could borrow personal items, and you've treated them pretty roughly. Sorry, but you'll have to buy these at full price. Just as I thought, despite my warnings to not wear them again. As expected, each suit in the closet was worth over 5K. The only consolation was that he had only worn 3 of them. William, I am so disappointed in you. I trusted you and Aurora. That's why I rented this house to you. You've hurt my dear Aurora, and I have no sympathy for you. My husband was already trembling, pale as a ghost. The amount Scarlett mentioned for the suits was significant. Then Thomas, adding insult to injury, began to speak. As for me, I would like to request the payment of this month's 15K rent, plus the cleaning fees for the room. The 3K rent was in agreement with Aurora, not with you. And I would like you to vacate the premises immediately. But it's impossible to leave right away. Aurora, you asked them too. Sophia, who had been sulking, looked up and shouted. Why should I? The divorce papers William sent have already been filed. We're strangers now. I have no obligation to help a stranger. Thomas, looking pitifully at Sophia, laid out the harsh reality. If you can't vacate immediately, we will have to charge you with illegal occupation. Why do I have to go through this? I can't take it anymore. Sophia screamed and stood up, then left the room. My husband, soulless for a while, finally looked at me, begging for help. Aurora, I'm sorry. I finally come to my senses. Got carried away with being fawned over and felt like a rich man and lost my mind. Yes, you're finally back to your senses. I'm really sorry. I was wrong. Let's start over from scratch, somewhere new. But his words no longer resonated with me. The trust was broken, and I had heard rumors of his womanizing. It's impossible. As I said earlier, our divorce is finalized. I filed the divorce papers in anger, but after a month, I have no regrets and have completely moved on. I looked at my husband with a full smile. Seeing my face, he seemed to give up and asked quietly, You paid most of the rent except my half, right? How much are you earning now? I realized we hadn't talked about work for a long time. I finally exceeded 8K a month. Looks like I'll reach 10K by the end of the year. No way. Why didn't you tell me? Please, let's start over. My husband slid off the sofa and collapsed onto the floor, crying. His hair, still messy, swayed. I wished he had stayed the same bedhead guy from back then. Even though I thought I was over it, I felt a little sad. Later, scared by the threat of illegal occupation, The two quickly rented a monthly apartment and left. They managed to pay and compensate with father-in-law's inheritance and the money from selling their house, but their finances were greatly depleted. Well, my husband isn't a bad earner, and living with his means, he'll manage. After the divorce, I received an apology from him once. I don't want to reconcile, but I truly wish him well. But he lamented, "It's hard to lower your standard of living once it's raised." He was grieving for Sophia, who lives with him. Thinking of Sophia, who enjoys hobbies and luxuries, their future seems full of uncertainties. I didn't demand any alimony. Some might think it's too kind, but I felt responsible for changing my carefree, bed-headed husband. In that environment, I changed my mindset to earning as much as I thought was normal. Thanks to that, my activities are expanding. But my husband and Sophia only used that environment to raise their living standards, without realizing their mistake. Now, I live alone in a 1.8K apartment. Not quite Scarlett's level, but compared to barely managing $900 a month, I feel much more self-affirmed. I want to keep believing in myself and fulfill my dreams.